Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. Hope you're doing well. I'm sorry it took me a while to get back here. It was a lot going on with deliveries and things going out. And UPS showed up, and I had to talk to them about a few things. But I'm here. So anyway, y'all, Marjorie Taylor Greene is leaving Congress. And her final day, I believe, is the 5th of January, so it's really not that far away. She has threatened to go on to the House floor and announce all of the perpetrators. And it's a list, from what I understand, of 2,000 names of rich people that exploited girls, underage girls. And she wants to stand there and announce each and every one of their names. Well, Donald Trump is all upset, and he actually called her and advised her not to do it because she would be hurting too many of his friends. So we know what kind of friends Donald Trump have. So anyway, she's been making the rounds and been on, doing interviews, and people been watching online, this whole thing unfold. So as usual, with Donald Trump, it's fear of things being revealed. And I mean, if you don't know by now what Donald Trump is, you just don't want to know. And on this particular topic, you have to kind of be careful because they don't like this kind of stuff out here. Although it really should be exposed, they don't like it out here. So, well, Donald Trump has fallen out with MTG. And once she's out of Congress, she really don't have nothing to lose. She don't have no seat to lose because he threatened to back her opponent if she would run for office again, and she decided not to run again. So at this point, she has nothing to lose. She ain't disappearing. You watch all of these news channels, they're going to have her on to counter anything Donald Trump is doing. You watch, she's going to be very busy. You're going to see her a lot. All right, let me share my screen so we can get started. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you.
This case should not be closed. We have Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison right now, and her little black book was ordered to be sealed under the court. And it has over 2,000 names of rich, powerful people and politicians in that contact list. So it's hard. It's just, look, there's nothing wrong with asking these questions. There's nothing wrong with saying we want to know more about this. And I think that's important. It's important to say I support President Trump and his administration while continuing to say we want more answers on this. That's not disloyalty. That's actually thinking for yourself, and it's actually pushing for better accountability. And that's what the American people deserve. And I think it's incredibly important to keep asking those questions. The American people are fed up with what they consider to be being lied to or told a narrative that's not true. And that's what this election was about, not only in 2016, but again in 2020 and 2024. The American people demand that the deep state no longer control this country. The American people demand loyalty and truth and transparency. And that is the right thing to continue to search for.
This is a public service announcement.
So MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, plans on going onto the House floor and reading off the name of the perpetrators on the Epstein list. As soon as they open the House of Representatives again, she's going to read the names from the victims of all the men that are on the Epstein list. She's done a complete 180 on pretty much everything as far as the way she stands with her party. And she plans on now reading the names out loud, where she has immunity, and anything she says, the victims are immune from what being persecuted for what she's saying, and expose the people on the Epstein list. Let's see if she says the one big name. I wonder if she'll say the one big name, because she still defends him. She won't defend anybody else, but she'll defend him. But all the rest of the guys are screwed. I bet you friggin' Johnson never opens up the House of Representatives.
House Democrat Robert Garcia is the ranking member on the House Oversight Committee. He issued a statement urging Donald Trump to release the names of the 10 co-conspirators the FBI was investigating at the time of Epstein's death. I'll have more on that momentarily. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is leaving Congress next month, primarily because of her fallout with Trump over the Epstein files, said of the DOJ's snail's pace, quote, "This is horrible. Only evil people would hide this and protect those who participated." And Thomas Massie, again, going after Trump, accusing him of defending his friends, of defending Bill Clinton, and, quote, so-called innocent visitors to Rape Island. Susie Wiles is the president's White House chief of staff. She went on record telling Vanity Fair there is no evidence in the files to suggest Bill Clinton was ever a visitor to Epstein's island.
According to the New York Times, something explosive just happened on Capitol Hill. After Marjorie Taylor Greene had a news conference where she threatened to name names of abusers connected to the Jeffrey Epstein files, Donald Trump reportedly called her immediately. Greene was in her Capitol Hill office when people nearby reported they could hear Donald Trump screaming at her over the phone. According to Greene, Trump said one sentence that'll tell you everything you need to know. "My friends will get hurt with this." Not protect the victims, not release everything, not let the truth come out. "My friends will get hurt." That's not the language of transparency. That's the language of shitting your pants. If releasing the Epstein files hurts your friends, it's not the Epstein files, it's your friggin' friends. And once again, the survivors have to watch powerful men argue, not about justice, but about damage control. Stop protecting the pedophiles, start protecting the victims. Share your thoughts in the comments section and follow me for more.
Yeah, it's a scary thing to name names, but I will tell you, I'm not afraid to name names. And so if they want to give me a list, I will walk in that Capitol on the House floor and I'll say every damn name that abused these women. I can do that for them, and I'd be proud to do it. Now, another thing, this is not about politics. And this is a boiling point in American history where the American people, just like Roe just said, there's become two Americas. There's the America for the rich and the powerful and the elite, where they never face any struggles or problems and never experience what real America goes through. And then there's forgotten America that faces all the problems and deals with all the issues and never gets justice for being sexually assaulted and raped by a monster. It shouldn't exist anymore, and people are sick of it. So let's recognize the fact that the administration before and the one before it and the one before it and the one before it and before it never did anything about this. So this isn't one political party or the other. It's a culmination of everyone worked together to silence these women and protect Jeffrey Epstein and his cabal. And this is not just rich, powerful people. Think his drivers, his maids, his chefs, all the people, people that worked in his home, security guards. I heard one story from a young woman that was being raped by Jeffrey Epstein when he was out on work release while he was serving time in prison and had an ankle monitor on his leg. Guess what? There was a police officer outside that door. So this list of names is quite a list of names, and it doesn't extend just in the rich, powerful circles. It extends down to the very bottom where people were paid. And again, I will say this, there's victims suffering today in similar circumstances, and they're terrified to name the names of the people that are currently abusing them. And so with these brave, courageous women fighting this fight, this is a fight for women and children and any person that is facing sexual abuse and rape and captivity and human trafficking right now. And so here's what I ask you in the press. Don't go for salacious headlines. Go for the truth and defend these women and help those of us in Congress that are crossing our political party lines for doing the right thing and trying to do it together.
Why is nobody talking about the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene talked to the New York Times and she said that she was just so naive to have ever believed in Trump? And she said that he has no faith. She doesn't believe that he has any faith at all. He's not Christian. And then she suggested to him that he should have the Epstein survivors come to the White House and that he should talk to them personally. And he said, no, because they haven't earned the privilege of having a meeting with the president. They haven't done anything to earn that. What? And then the worst of it is that she was this is her talking to him personally. I don't know if it was on the phone or in person, but she was personally talking to him and she's recounting this. And she said that she was saying that she's really upset about him not releasing all the full files. And he yelled at her and he said, well, my friends will get hurt if it all gets released. Why is no one talking about that? So hold on. So A, he's admitting that he's not releasing everything on purpose. That's an admission right there. So he's admitting that he's withholding these files and he's not releasing them on purpose, which the White House has denied. And second of all, he's admitting that he's protecting PDFs. I think that anybody with a brain knows that he's also talking about himself. But even if you don't think he's talking about himself, he's obviously covering for other PDFs. So even if you're a crazy MAGA person like she is, she's like, I was so naive to believe in him. He's not America first. Like, I can't support him anymore because that's just, why would you be protecting wealthy, elite, powerful people from all this stuff? And then say, oh, the survivors haven't earned the right to talk to me. Why is no one talking about this? I've heard no one talk about this. That should be fucking headline news everywhere. What?
Marjorie Taylor Greene just told the New York Times that in a phone conversation with Donald Trump, he said to her that his friends would get hurt if the Epstein files were released. After a hearing where Marjorie Taylor Greene and other members of Congress spoke to Epstein victims, Donald Trump called Greene to voice his displeasure. Greene was in her Capitol Hill office, and according to staff members, everyone in the suite of rooms could hear him yelling at her as she listened to him on speakerphone. Greene says she expressed her perplexity over his intransigence, and according to Greene, Trump replied, quote, my friends will get hurt. She urged Trump to invite some of Epstein's female victims to the Oval Office, but he angrily informed her that they had done nothing to merit the honor. Yeah, that's how Donald Trump thinks about Epstein's victims. He is more concerned about his friends getting hurt who were involved with Epstein than he is about getting justice and accountability and transparency for the people who suffered at the hand of Epstein. I'm sure the Trump loyalists will find a way to defend this by twisting themselves into pretzels like they always do, but for normal people, this is reprehensible.
You all know how we were being gaslit and we were being told that there were no co-conspirators that dealt with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and this whole entire case was going to be closed because there's nothing else to look into. Well, in the new Epstein files that dropped last night, I found some crazy emails that prove otherwise. Honestly, nobody should be surprised by this because we literally knew we were being gaslit, because it's absolutely crazy to say that this big, huge criminal operation was only Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. In these new file dumps, there is an email that names one particular person when referencing co-conspirators, and that's Les Wexner. So I first came across this email that was dated Sunday, July 7th of 2019. And this first email is sent by the FBI in New York to somebody that we obviously don't know. And they say, when you get a chance, can you give me an update on the status of the 10 co-conspirators? Do we need blank to head out on blank? Whoever the FBI sent this email to, they responded and says, blank does not need to head out. We made contact with blank last night in New York. Contact was made with blank, blank, and blank. Attempts were made to blank and Burnell, who I'm assuming is John Luke Burnell. Blank is confirmed to live in New York, but was away for the holiday weekend. We did not have a good address for blank, but an attempt was made at a New York residence. Attempts to Maxwell are being made in Boston today. Blank will be approached in Florida and blank in New York, but haven't as of yet. I do not know about Ohio contacting Wexner. And I don't know if they just forgot to black out Les Wexner's name, but this isn't the only document that they talk about these co-conspirators. 2 days later, on July 9th of 2019, there is an email being sent to somebody by the Crimes Against Children unit. They say, good morning. Blank is requesting an update on the 10 co-conspirators by COB today. Can you tell us how many successfully have been located, interviewed, and served with grand jury subpoenas? I believe the breakdown was 5 in New York, 1 in North Carolina, 1 in Boston, and 3 in Florida. Please let me know if you need anything from us. Thank you. Whoever they sent this email to responded. Of the 10 co-conspirators, 3 have been located in Florida and served with grand jury subpoenas. 1 in Boston, 1 in New York City, 1 in CT were located and served. 4 out of the 10 are outstanding with attempts having been made. 1 is a wealthy businessman in Ohio, a lead being sent to CB. The remaining 3 are currently out of pocket. The team is flying out tonight, tomorrow, to various locations in Florida to interview approximately 25 victims. 1-800-CALL FBI line is up and running, and we have received approximately 45 calls, which we are in the process of vetting out. Let me know if you need anything else. Sean. And then fast forward to December 2019, and there is an email in these new drop of files that is from the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York that says, FYI, Julie Brown is hearing that we are unsealing 4 indictments against co-conspirators next week. Then here is another email that was included in this drop by some attorney at the Southern District of New York who said that this is a memo on May 6th of 2020. Memo on co-conspirators we could potentially charge. The Monday after Epstein's death, delivered that Wednesday, 7 pages. Co-conspirator updated memo, December, 86 pages. Corporate prosecution memo, December, 13 pages, never discussed. Blank prosecution memo, April, 26 pages, hasn't been discussed in 3 weeks since we sent it. Perjury/NM memo will be another 30 pages. So it seems like to me they were talking before Epstein passed away in 2019 about 10 co-conspirators. And honestly, I don't think that they meant to leave Lex Wexner's name unredacted because the other names were redacted. But now we've come this far, and the only co-conspirator that's ever been charged is Ghislaine Maxwell. So where are these other 10 co-conspirators at? But y'all let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments.
Marjorie.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know people know how to remove all of those black lines off of the document to read the full document. All they're doing is going into Microsoft Word and they're removing those black redacted lines off with the software, and it works, and people are doing it everywhere. And in fact, they spoke about this briefly a few days ago. They were like, the public knows how to, remove all of the black lines and get to the text. So it's not as hard as you think. I guess they think, with all this technology, people can't remove those black lines they got all over the documents. but they're doing it every day, y'all. And I was reading they're only using Microsoft Word to remove all of it, and then they get to read the full document. Yeah, it is crazy. It's crazy for them to put that out, believing that people can't remove all that stuff, and they can. All right, let's go on.
Marjorie Taylor Greene had an interview with the New York Times. She not only said that she was naive for believing Trump, during Charlie Kirk's memorial, when Trump said, "I hate my opponent and I don't want the best for them," Greene said that was the absolute worst statement. It just shows where his heart is. And that's the difference with her having a sincere Christian faith and proves that he does not have any faith. She said that Trump privately opposed her reading out the names of some of the men tied to Epstein who abused women, telling her, "My friends will get hurt." She also took issue with the aesthetic of women at Mar-a-Lago. She said she never liked the MAGA Mar-a-Lago sexualization. "I believe how women in leadership present themselves sends a message to younger women. I have 2 daughters, and I've always been uncomfortable with how those women puff up their lips and enlarge their breasts. I've never spoken about it publicly, but I've been planning to." Side note, how has she presented herself? Is that the standard of how women in leadership should present themselves? But I digress. She said, "Our side has been trained by Donald Trump to never apologize and never admit when you're wrong. You just keep pummeling your enemies no matter what. And as a Christian, I don't believe in doing that. I agree with Erica Kirk, who did the hardest thing possible and said it out loud. For a lot of MAGA, Trump is a savior and he's like God to them." She said there was a bunch of little fissures in their relationship, but the big thing that ended their relationship was Jeffrey Epstein, and that Epstein was everything. When she suggested that the president could invite Epstein survivors to the Oval Office to show that their stories were being heard, the president allegedly said that they had not done anything to earn such an honor. She also said the Epstein files present everything wrong with Washington. Rich, powerful elites doing horrible things and getting away with it, and the women are the victims. Her response to people telling her that she's changed, she says, "I haven't changed my views, but I've matured. I've developed depth. I've learned Washington, and I've come to understand the brokenness of the place. If none of us is learning lessons here, and we can't evolve and mature with our lessons, then what kind of people are we?" So not only is she saying that Donald Trump said that his friends will be hurt, and that's what a lot of people are going to run with this story, but she's also signaling to the Christians and the MAGA that Trump is not a Christian at all, that they are worshiping him as a god, that she herself wants to become more Christian, and that means separating herself from Trump, which is a signal to these Christians and MAGA that if they want to become more godly, they should do the same. This is a dog whistle of sorts to MAGA and Christians that she is the America First person, that she is ending her relationship with Donald Trump because he is not a true Christian, and that I guarantee she will be running for president in 2028. Mark my words.
Trump has been very clear that he would prefer to protect people. Well, some and not others.
I don't like the pictures of Bill Clinton being shown. I don't like the pictures of other people being shown. I think it's a terrible thing. I think Bill Clinton's a big boy. He can handle it. But you probably have pictures being exposed of other people that innocently met Jeffrey Epstein years ago, many years ago. And they're, highly respected bankers and lawyers and others.
Won't someone think of the bankers and lawyers? As congresspeople from both sides have been saying, protecting a bunch of bankers or lawyers because they're highly respected is violating both the spirit and the letter of the law. Again, you can disagree with the law, but Donald Trump signed that into law.
So President Trump has just decided that any states that are protesting Israel, that are against what's happening in Gaza, and they publicize it, they go out and protest it, he's going to cut disaster relief funding to that entire state. He doesn't care. We don't live in the United States of America anymore. It's obvious to me. It's got to be obvious to you. We live in the United States of Israel.
You're telling me that we don't have the video of Epstein killing himself and that we're all just supposed to expect this guy who we know, all those people who are in the admin now, my friends, they know Epstein was intel. They know he was tied to our intel. They know he was tied to Mossad. They knew he was tied to Saudi. He was a free agent. He was willing to go.
And British intelligence.
Yeah, and he was willing to go and get this compromat at a time when the British and the Israelis and the United States government needed to get people aligned with the Iraq war. And there was a worry that people would drift off and start opposing an increasingly unpopular war in Iraq. And so they got together, a bunch of people in academia, politics, media, business, and tried to get them in a compromising situation so that then everyone would stay on board no matter what.
How about we all come together and say, let's stop attacking pedophiles?
How about no? How about we come together and then confiscate your cell phone and computers? Immediate shakedown with a statement like that. What the fuck?
When corrupt politicians start going to jail, that's when I'll start trusting the government again.
They're all connected. You see, the red hats want to believe this is all about a Democrat today. But the facts are the facts, dear, and the facts are this. This is not a political play. The divide here is between the American people and the elite, who, because of their money and their power, get away with just about anything.
The U.S.-Israel relationship is toxic. Like, you can't censor it. No, and how are you going to censor the presidential debate stage in 2028? Because let me walk through what you're going to see. You are going to see candidates on the Republican debate stage and on the Democrat debate stage. They're going to say, I'm going to cut off all aid to Israel. I believe the U.S.-Israel relationship is toxic. I think it is an abusive relationship, and the United States is the abused partner, and we need to leave. And those people are automatically going to surge to a prominent position in the polling in their parties. So then how are you ultimately going to censor a viewpoint that is a rising viewpoint on the left and the right? This is coming to a head. And I saw the deal where, have you looked at the FARA filings where the Israeli government is paying to geofence U.S. churches so that they can propagandize evangelical Christians? I'm watching this saying, it's not going to work.
We have some major breaking news at this hour. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is doubling down on her promise to read the client list from the Epstein files that the Department of Justice has continued to redact. Donald Trump, as if you saw my video yesterday, called Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying that his friends will get hurt if she does what she says she is going to do. Now, here's the thing. Marjorie Taylor Greene has absolutely nothing to lose by reading this client list. Nothing at all. She's already leaving Congress on January 5th, and she says that she will do this before she leaves if the Department of Justice continues to break the law. Donald Trump is scared. He truly is scared. This is no longer a political issue. This is a human decency issue. What those women endured on that island is despicable. And the fact that the president of the United States is trying to continuously cover this up to save his friends and his own ass really proves who he cares about. It is not the American people. Stick with me for more on this.
So there's two things people aren't talking about with the Epstein files. And that's number one, out of all the files that have been released to date, the number one most mentioned name in there is obviously Jeffrey Epstein. The second most mentioned name obviously is Maxwell, but it's the third most mentioned name. All the files to date is Donald Trump. And this doesn't even include where his name is hidden by the redactions, mind you. So when they say where there's smoke, there's fire, this isn't smoke. This is all out flames. This is a fire in terms of Donald Trump's involvement. The second thing we're not talking about are all the co-conspirators who received immunity. Jean-Luc Brunel, French modeling agent, he went to jail for raping young girls, and then he unalived himself in prison in 2022, interestingly enough. I've got to use code words so this video doesn't get taken down. Sarah Kellen, Epstein's assistant, accused of booking massages, which is code for inappropriate encounters, arranging travel and recruiting the victims. Nadia Marchenko, brought to the U.S. by Epstein as a teen, allegedly as an sex slave, accused of participating in inappropriate acts with underage girls for Epstein and for others, and she was a recruiter and a groomer as well. Adriana Ross, former model, Epstein assistant, accused of scheduling these encounters, removing evidence, which there was a lot of that went on, and helping to manage the operations. Leslie Groff, longtime executive assistant, accused of scheduling travel and massages for Epstein and others, coordinating with victims. And then, of course, Lex Wexner, billionaire, founder of Victoria's Secret, Epstein's former financial client, accused of benefiting from and knowing about the scheme, who is still going to Victoria's Secret still, ladies, who's still going. Here's what I want to talk about. They received immunity to turn over evidence against only Epstein and Maxwell, the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest ones to go after at the end of the day. And now that they have immunity, they don't have to cough up any evidence about anyone ever again. They can shut the door on the faces of investigators if this is ever done again. And we can sit here and criticize prosecutors. We can, and it's valid. But I will tell you, it seems to me the investigators were doing their jobs and they kept running into dead ends. The witnesses were being threatened. Witnesses were being paid off. These very powerful, wealthy, mostly men, had a way of making sure investigators ran into a dead end every time. And so that left prosecutors needing to go after what they actually could go after, Maxwell and Epstein. But everybody else is now protected. Yeah.
It's not just these 3 emails from Jeffrey Epstein that mention President Donald Trump. There's actually a ton of emails that mention Donald Trump, and I read them this morning. Now, you probably already know that the House Democrats on the Oversight Committee released these 3 specific emails from the convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein that all mentioned the president this morning. But what you may not know is the full House Oversight Committee, including Republicans, released 20,000 additional documents from the Epstein estate this morning, too. And I just went through hundreds of those documents, and they all, in some way or another, mention Trump. Some talk about Trump before he was president, but most of these emails from Jeffrey Epstein were dated 2017, 2018, during Trump's first term, and discussed Trump's strategies, his comments publicly and in private, and at least one talks about potential leverage that Epstein could have on Trump. Now, before I get into all of this, because there's a lot, the White House responded to this huge document dump today.
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President Trump has always said is that he was from Palm Beach, and so was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until President Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and he was a creep. And this email you refer to with the name of a victim that was unredacted now and has since been reported on in this room, so I will go ahead and say it, Virginia Giuffre. And it was CBS's own reporting, Ouija, that recently wrote that Miss Giuffre maintained, and God rest her soul, that she maintained that there was nothing inappropriate she ever witnessed, that President Trump was always extremely professional and friendly to her. And so I think it's a question worth asking the Democrat Party, and you should all go ask them after this briefing, of why they chose to redact that name of a victim who has already publicly made statements about her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and is unfortunately no longer with us.
We'll get to what the White House press secretary said in a second, but first, the facts. Fact, victim names are always redacted in these files. Fact, the documents I'm reporting on in this video were released by both Democrats and Republicans. Fact, all of the emails I'm reporting on are part of a trove of documents that the full House Oversight Committee received from the Epstein estate. These documents did not come from the Justice Department's massive Epstein file because they still haven't released that file, as you know. These emails are just the tip of the iceberg. There will very well be more emails or documents that mention Trump that come out that were sent over to the House committee by the Epstein estate as the committee members sort through them. Okay, so now to these actual emails. You already heard about the 3 specific ones from Jeffrey Epstein to the writer Michael Wolff and to Ghislaine Maxwell. In one of them, Epstein writes that Trump spent hours at his house with one of the victims. The Republicans say that victim was one of the most recognizable Epstein victims, Virginia Giuffre. In another,
Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of Donald Trump's closest allies, said that when she pushed for the release of the EpiPen files, that Donald Trump personally called her and warned that opening them would, quote, hurt a lot of his friends. And that didn't come from a critic, that came from inside MAGA. So ask yourself, Why would transparency be a problem if there's nothing to hide? Because here's the pattern that matters. Donald Trump is on tape, in his own words, bragging about grabbing women by the hoo-ha, whether they like it or not. And that recording is real. He's never denied it. Multiple women have accused Donald Trump of sexual assault over decades. And in a court of law, a jury found him liable for sexual abuse and later liable again for defaming his accuser. Those are actually adjudicated facts. Now let's layer in the Epstein files. Recently released court documents include multiple references to Donald Trump in victim statements, social circles, and records tied to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Some claims are unverified. Some, though, were submitted as FBI tips, and some were never fully investigated. Sure, they're not proven, but it does mean they exist, and they were delayed, minimized, or buried for years. So when Donald Trump's own ally says releasing these files would hurt his friends, people are left with a basic question. What exactly are we being prevented from seeing? I mean, this isn't about declaring guilt without a trial. It's about recognizing patterns, because when someone's own words, court findings, associations, and repeated allegations all point in the same direction, ignoring it doesn't make it go away. I mean, at some point, the public has to ask, how much smoke are we willing to ignore before we admit there might be a fire? And this is why watching the pattern matters.
Oh, well, we are not that far away from the 5th. I hope she does it, but we shall see. I'm definitely going to do another live if she stands on that House floor and announce all those names. Man, I am definitely going live on that one. So, y'all, thank you for being here. I want to thank one of many ancestral shadows. Daily, we're vindicated. MGMR. Thank you. Yeah, we are. We are. We're really getting to see, they try to harm us by calling us the criminals and we were no good. And look who really are the no good ones in these final days. It ain't nothing but the damn Gentiles. It ain't nothing but the Gentiles. And it doesn't matter what group. They are all being out. Every last one of them are out here being the bad guy right now. And I'm loving it because it's not us. I'm loving it. And I hope it continues. But I notice, especially over these last few months, no matter how much they call us criminals, we are not the one in the spotlight being accused of things. But these other Gentiles, they most certainly are. So, hey, that's on them. That's on them. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you so much for being here, and be on the lookout for my lives tomorrow. I'm going to try to go to sleep before all them loud fireworks be going off, because you know how these folks are. Around here, they'll fire them suckers off until 3 a.m. I'm going to try to go to sleep before then so I don't have to hear none of it. Shalom, family.